Where are we going?
We're going to Ocracoke Island.
Woohoo!
Beautiful day.
Going on a car ferry. A little bit of whitecaps out there. We made it to Ocracoke. Big bucket list item here. Going to Ocracoke Island for me was very exciting and checked off a huge bucket list item. We spent a wonderful weekend there, but spoiler alert, the shelling could have been a little bit better. I want to emphasize that this was just my experience of the island and yours could be very different. Despite the lack of great shelling, Ocracoke is a magical place, so I highly recommend a visit. So let's go check out Ocracoke. Ocracoke Island is located in North Carolina's Outer Banks. Ocracoke is different than many of the other areas in the Outer Banks in that it is not accessible by car. You can take a car ferry, a passenger ferry, or an airplane to get there. Of course, you can also get there by private boat. Once there, you will be greeted with a sweet little 1 mile long downtown area and miles of pristine, undeveloped beach. We've arrived at the ferry to go over to Ocracoke Island, and we're of course about 45 minutes early, so we're going to go check out the little beach here. Maybe a little choppy today, windy. We decided to leave our camper behind and stay in a hotel for 2 nights. You can bring your camper to the island as there are campgrounds, but since we were already set up at a campground for 2 weeks, we decided to do this excursion without our camper. From the south, you will take the ferry from the Cedar Island dock. It is a good idea to pre-book your ferry if you are visiting in season. We went in April and did pre-book, but it wasn't too crowded. Going in April was great from a crowd standpoint, but keep in mind that not everything is open for the season yet, so when you're booking, just remember that before Memorial Weekend, not everything will be open. They charge by the vehicle, and since our truck was a little bigger than a regular car, or a lot bigger, we paid $60 round trip. We took Highway 12 to the dock at Cedar Island, which is a very beautiful drive, but it is long and there's not a lot of services. Once you arrive at the dock, there are restrooms and a very nice beach to hang out on while you wait for the ferry. The ferry from Cedar Island takes 2 hours and 15 minutes, and despite it being a very windy day, it was a really smooth ride. There are places to sit around the deck and inside, and you can also stay in your vehicle if you wish. Some smart travelers we saw got out their camping chairs and sat right out on the deck of the ferry near their car. I'm not sure there would be room to do that if the ferry was full, but we thought it was a great idea. Bring food if you're hungry, because I believe there's only a vending machine on the ferry, and I'm not sure if that was stocked or not. There's another ferry that comes from Swan Quarter if you're coming from the west or the north, and I also believe there is a pedestrian-only ferry that you can take from Hatteras, but I can't really speak to that since we didn't come from that direction. Oh, fun.
Lots of noise.
I'd like to do that with your motorhome. No, thank you. All of the restaurants and hotels and shops are within about a mile from the ferry dock. We stayed at a hotel called Captain's Quarters, which we absolutely loved. Are you happy? The island is completely bikeable, and there is a wonderful bike trail that runs the length of the island. Bikes really can't go on the beach there because the sand is deep and fluffy, and frankly I'm not sure if they're allowed, but it would be hard to get your bike out to the beach. If you have a 4-wheel drive car and you get a permit, you can drive on the beach. Many of the locals drive their cars on the beach for fishing or whatever activities they want to do on the beach. So we are at the Point South, maybe? Is it called Point South? On Ocracoke. This is the southern part of the island. We're going to check it out. You can drive on the beach if you have a special permit, 4-wheel drive, but we did take our bikes. And it's too sandy for our bikes. So we're walking in. check out shells of Ocracoke. The beaches here are spectacular, absolutely windswept, beautiful, and the stuff out of a romance novel. The shelling, again, was not so spectacular. I didn't find hardly any whole shells, and if you see the winds and the high surf, it's no wonder those shells don't land on the beach intact. It could also be the time of the year and the weather, I don't really know, but the shelling for me wasn't a complete bust, but it wasn't exactly what I had hoped. The visit, however, was not a bust by any means. We'll kind of walk up here from this area. See, there was like 0 shells down there. There's a couple here, not many. Hey, treasure finders. I had really high hopes of shelling here on Ocracoke, but the problem is the winds, I think. It's so windy here. It's been 20-30 mile per hour winds. We took the ferry over yesterday. It was not too bad on the intercoastal, but the ocean is just kicking, as you'll see, and it just kind of wipes the beach clean of shells. I did find yesterday an almost full Scotch bonnet just as we were leaving the beach. I went to look at one more shell. So there's a couple of shells, but it's really been not the best shelling, unfortunately. So I'm just stopping at one other beach this morning, and I don't expect things to be really very different, but you can see as we step out here. So there's a few shells in the high rack line here, but as far as the low tide area, there's just nothing. It's just kind of wiped clean, but it's beautiful out here. It's such a pretty, it's just so vast. I don't know how to describe it. It's just so vast and kind of desolate and lonely and beautiful all at the same time. So there's one other sheller out here I can see. So I'm just gonna check things out, take a little walk, and we'll see how this goes. These are kind of cool. This is a mermaid's purse. This is a egg casing for a skate. It's a pretty cool find. Not gonna take it with me. So you can see there's just not much here. Let's take a nice walk. Look at these waves. Since there's really no shells along the water, I decided to come up into these high rack lines, and there's a few more shells up here. They're mostly broken, as you can see. But what I decided to do, because really there's just broken shells, I decided to pick up some of the pieces of the shells because I think that they're really beautiful. I have a little bag full right here. You can see all the colors of these pieces, and I think I'm going to be able to do some sort of art project with these because I think they're really beautiful. So, you know, sometimes you have to get creative. If you can't find a whole shell, you can pick up pieces. I just wanted to show you this over here. The beach is deserted this morning except for this lone tire track. And there's this hole right here that's been raked. And I'm trying to figure out what, maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody had a fire, but this isn't anywhere close to a beach access, so I don't know what happened here. If you have any ideas, let me know. Maybe there was a dead sea animal or something and the Park Service picked it up. I don't know. Weird. I thought this morning that, because it was lightning, I thought it was like the lighthouse.
I did too. I saw it once. I heard the thunder after that.
Here we are at the Ocracoke Lighthouse. And check this out. You can't go in it, from what we understand, but you can film it. So we were just reading that this lighthouse is the second largest in the country, and it is 75 feet above sea level, and you can see 14 miles when you're up at the top. It's a non-rotating lighthouse, and this house over here used to be for the caretaker of the lighthouse, but now it's privately owned. And they used to store the fuel for the lighthouse in these little sheds here. What's that? The walls are 5 feet thick? Yeah. Wow, well that would withstand a hurricane, right?
It's good money.
These gravesites contain the bodies of 4 British seamen. Their ship, the armed trawler HMS Bedfordshire, was on loan to our Navy by Great Britain to help protect our shores during the early days of World War II. On May 11th, 1942, the Bedfordshire was torpedoed and sunk by a German sub. All hands were lost, and these 4 were the only bodies recovered. This cemetery is maintained by Ocracoke Coast Guard Station personnel. Oh! Despite the lack of shelling, we had such a wonderful time on Ocracoke Island. We loved the little town and we biked to the restaurants and shops. If you didn't bring your bike, you can rent them or a golf cart on the island, but you really can walk almost everywhere if your intent is to stay right in town. There's a brewery on the island, but we never could seem to get there when they were open. This again was because of the time of year, I think. We did find this cute little shop/wine bar called Zilly's Island Pantry, and we really enjoyed having a glass of wine and time to sit on the patio and relax there. Beware of the high prices on the island. Ryan's Martini at the Ocracoke Oyster Company was served in a plastic cup and was, gulp, $18. Now, that's a lot for us Midwesterners, but my New York daughter probably wouldn't have batted an eyelash. We also really enjoyed Howard's Pub because the food was great and we had a fun time hearing island stories from the bartender who was a year-round local. Our favorite dinner was at Dagio, I'm not sure how to say it, which was a little upscale and had really fresh and not fried bar food. You should check out the Ocracoke Ponies while you're there, and mostly just be ready to relax and be on island time. We're here checking out the Ocracoke Ponies, and it says here that they have been on the island since the 1730s, but in 1959 they corralled them all because of automobile traffic. They've made the highway 55 miles per hour. They didn't want either the ponies or the people to get damaged, so they have a very wide area to roam, yet this is where they get fed, so this is where they spend a lot of time. This is sort of a real-time shell and tell of my shells from Ocracoke Island. We went to Ocracoke. I thought that there would be a ton of shells. I had heard that the shells were going to be really great, and it turns out there weren't any whole shells that I could find. But what I did find, and what I decided to collect, was a whole bunch of these broken quahog shells, and I ended up getting so many of these because I just thought that they would make really cool craft projects, and really they were the only shells that I could find. But I started looking at the patterns on them and the textures, and I mean, these are just massive shells if they were whole. I would have liked to even find some of these whole, but I just loved how the patterns looked, and I haven't 100% decided what I'm going to do with these pieces, but this was basically what I found on Ocracoke. Now, I have heard after storms and such, you can find really good shells out there, but when I was there really wasn't. This was the only thing that was washing up on the beaches. That being said, I mean, the beaches were amazing there. We loved Ocracoke Island, and I would definitely go back. And as you saw in the video, you know, we just loved it. But this was kind of the haul from that trip. And I'm gonna have a whole bin of these. And again, I have a few ideas tucked in my brain about what I'm gonna do with these. Yeah, this was what I found. And so if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, you could do that as well. And I'll see you down the beach somewhere.